Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode, we dive into the actual sales processes, plays, and strategies working for sales teams today. No high-level overview, we get into the actual weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their businesses. And we've got two sponsors. Inside the Sales Playbook is sponsored by SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales knowledge all on one great platform. No longer do you have to have your sales knowledge spread out on Google Drives and on Dropbox and on various other files and folders and saved locally on your own computer. SalesKit makes it easier than ever for your team to access the sales knowledge that actually works. You can sign up for a free trial at getsaleskit.com. And buy my book, Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. You can get a copy of this book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a sales contributor at getsaleskit.com/book. Let's get into the show. And I am your host, Mark Evans, and today I am here with Mr. Greg Larsen. Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Well, Greg is the head of revenue operations at LingoTek. This is a really fast-growing company, about 100 or so employees based out of Utah. They've raised about $8 million in funding throughout the years. I think the last round, though, was back in 2012, but just a really exciting growing company in that area of Utah that just seems like it's consistently producing some really fast-growing SaaS and software-based companies. So, Greg, I'm so excited to have you on the show, but I was hoping you could give the listeners and the viewers a little bit of context. How about you walk us through what is LingoTek and how do you help them achieve their mission?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so LingoTek is a translation management and services platform. So we help companies that need to localize or translate their content, their website, anything that they need into multiple languages to serve their customers, their employees, their buyers, anything like that.
Who's a good fit for you?
Yeah.
Or who's a typical end user?
So that's the thing with translation. Most people don't realize it, but it's a $40 billion industry.
Wow.
And and to give you kind of a comparison, last I looked, the cybersecurity industry is about 10 to 15 billion. And so it's kind of you think of like Wizard of Oz, the translation industry is the man behind the curtain, making sure that everything out in front of the customer looks good the way that it's supposed to be. So when we talk ideal customers, it's really the gamut, finance, manufacturing, retail, anything you can think of that has a multinational presence. There's a need for them to present their product and their pitch in the native language of their buyer. And so we try to make that as streamlined as possible, try to disrupt the industry a little bit and make it a little bit more techy than the old school print out a page, hand it to a translator, send it back type of thing.
So I think automatically, and maybe this is something that the listeners and viewers can recognize with, when I think of translation services, I automatically think of like voice to voice or help me translate a phone call in real time. But that's not what LingoTek does from what I understand, right? This is actually on web pages and different areas that you would encounter a translation need on a web page or on the internet.
Yeah, so we do a lot of digital content. We do subtitles and voiceovers and things like that. It's starting to get a lot more popular as more companies move their content to video. Then they need to be able to, you think of Netflix, right? Their national presence and the need to subtitle everything and do that. So we do that. But yeah, you're right. Most content is digital these days. And the process before LingoTek came along in this industry was, okay, your webmaster goes to your web page, they export a text file, an ASCII file, they hand it off to a translator as some type of a computer automated tool that they're going through, and they translate it. Then they export it, hand it back. Then someone at that company has to then go and plug that back onto the website, change the images. Oh, this one was too big. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. So what LingoTek did was we came in, we created a software platform that actually plugs right into your website. Wow. So rather than exporting the text file and importing it into a tool, you essentially just connect them via an API. And now your translator can translate your website content on the website. and it's right in line. They can see the pictures that it goes with. They can make sure that it fits in the boxes. They can really do it streamlined. And so it makes it, one, more aesthetically pleasing, but two, the process is less human, if that makes sense. It's not automated completely. It's not AI. It's not Google Translate going in and doing that. It's a human translator, but there's less risk of exporting the file, missing some text, putting it back in. It's just all right there. Yeah. And so what that does is it cuts a company's speed to translation down. And we're talking big companies, we're going from 2 months to 2 weeks.
That's incredible.
And really helping them get it turned faster. So
yeah, it seems like this is such this economy will forever amaze me, and there's such riches in these areas that I never even gave another thought to. But that makes so much sense, especially with the multitude of languages is out there, and all these different cultures and communities getting online, and brands wanting to go to a global audience. Makes perfect sense, and I'm sure there's still a ton of room in the total addressable market still.
Yeah. It always grows.
Yeah, I could imagine. Right? Yeah, I could imagine. Well, let's get into you a little bit. Now, Greg, of all the things you could have done, you're a really smart guy. Man, why the heck did you even choose sales? How did you even get into this crazy career that we call sales?
Oh gosh, that's taking me back. So I think I always knew I wanted to be in business and to be in sales. It just, even from an early age, I tell people my first sales transaction was when I convinced my brother to pay me interest on a loan I gave him for $10 to buy a dog when we were like 10 years old.
That's pretty good. What was the interest rate on something like that?
Oh, 50%.
50%, right? Easy, yeah.
Easy numbers for a 10-year-old, right? I'll give you $10 today, you give me $20 next week, and we'll call it good. You can buy a dog.
That makes sense.
I've always had a passion for negotiation and trying to get what I want, right?
Yeah.
And that's what sales is. So growing up, I went to college, I went into business, and I tried the door-to-door selling thing in college, and
not easy.
I hated it, but it was a way to pay college and not have to work during the year, and it was great. But I learned a lot, and so as I went in, I got a job out of college in sales, and it was okay. And then I was lucky enough to have a high school buddy, a neighbor of mine, introduce me to a company called Qualtrics. And at the time, he was working in a basement. Hey, this is the best thing in the world. It's going to change the world. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. 4 years later, I decided to take him up and joined. And that's where I learned how to sell.
Okay.
Before I feel like I was just an imposter.
That's the real education. That was the real master's degree.
And, Qualtrics, when I joined, 100 employees, and the focus was on teaching these high school and college students how to sell to these big enterprise companies, how to sell, market research software. And so what happened is I got world-class training, and I was able to see how good process and good training implemented could actually take someone, a schlub like me, just, someone that's just flying by the seat of their pants, and try to turn them into a bona fide enterprise sales rep. And that's where, kind of full circle, that's where I got my passion for the strategy and operational side of sales, was at Qualtrics, and seeing how someone could struggle, and then you put them into the right environment, training track, and right enablement, everything like that, and all of a sudden they're a quota crusher.
Yeah.
And that's where it just really took off in my mind, and said, like, gosh, I could do this forever. And awesome. And so I found training other sales reps and getting them involved, and teaching and using process to improve their sales outcome. That was the passion for me. It wasn't in going out and closing a deal for myself, which I loved, but I found out I loved the strategy and the leadership side a lot more.
Yeah, that's awesome. And let's dive into that a little bit more. One of the things that I'm constantly being asked about, and it seems like it's a really hot trend right now and topic, is, how do we improve our onboarding and training process, especially in this work from home model that we all find ourselves in, right? Everybody's asking, right, how do we reduce ramp time and how do we increase the quality of our sales training process? So let's talk a little bit about the sales training processes and procedures. I know we've talked about in the past that you've helped develop and create for companies and for teams, but what does your onboarding and training process look like today?
Yeah, so onboarding training is huge. Today at LingoTek, it's vital because we only hire maybe 2 to 3 people a month.
Okay.
We're on a very steady growth pace, and we do a lot of business, but we do it in kind of a headcount managed way.
Nice.
And so it's not like a company where, if I mess it up, I can go hire a bunch more people next week.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So when you're thinking about training and onboarding, it starts with the first interview. I mean, you have to make sure every single box is checked and that everything. I mean, there's a logistics side, there's a content side, there's introductions, everything like that has to be done. And now that we're in a remote world, you can't just say like, oh, we're remote, so I'll get you that swag package of new stuff as a new employee when I get to it, because you won't get to it.
Yeah.
You've got so many other things. And so making sure that you have an actual documented onboarding process is the first step. Document the process, what you currently have, and see where a gap is. If you were going to go to a new company, design what you would want to be treated like in the first week.
I like that.
And then go implement it.
It's like the golden rule of sales training. How would you want to go? How would you want to experience your training in the first week? I really, really like that. Greg, just to interrupt you real quick, what is a favorite tool of yours that you like using to document that onboarding and training process? What do you currently use that you're having success with?
Honestly, I keep it really simple. Our onboarding process is in, some PowerPoints and Excel sheets. It's something that we make sure we don't have a lot of moving parts in it. There's 2 or 3 people that are involved in every onboarding. And so there's not a lot of departments coordinating it. If there were, I would move it, this is probably the theme of the day for me. I would move it into Salesforce.
Yeah.
Because if you have someone that can create like an applicant tracking system or an onboarding system, it's basically just a project management flow in Salesforce that you could make sure all the boxes get checked. But really, yeah, there's, the person that's the head of onboarding or in charge of everything. You have an HR person, and then you have that person's direct manager or direct reports that need to be involved, and that's it. So you keep it simple and you'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's a favorite aspect of the training and onboarding process that you're currently implementing that you feel like, man, this is just world-class that others could maybe implement into their sales team?
Oh, world-class. I don't know. That's a big one. But again, for me, it's a concept of, like I said, take an onboarding process that you'd like to be a part of and implement it. And so what that requires is for someone not to be so formal, not to, hey, your first day is going to be this training and then this training and then this training. It's really like, understand, like, your employees have families, they have kids, they have obligations, they need to know payment schedule, all of that stuff. So really just sitting down and letting someone digest that they're in a new chair in a job, and let them just feel it out, figure out their surroundings, everything like that. And so for me, the whole onboarding process it's like dating someone. Like you got them on the date, you're not done, right? Yeah. You still have to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings, that everything's there, and that you let them participate in it too. And so when I onboard someone, their schedule's not set the whole day. They have gaps in their schedule where I give them options like, hey, you can go listen to a demo, or you can go into LMS and work on this. You can go to lunch, or you can, I'll introduce you to someone and I'll have them take you to lunch. Let them choose, because then they own it themselves.
Love that.
And so that's the, like with onboarding for me, it's not a trick, it's not a tool, it's really just being human and letting the person on the other side of the table understand that you're human. And I
Yeah.
think they'll respond a lot better, and they take a lot more control over their own onboarding process if you allow them to.
Yeah, it's a big step, right? It's a big unknown. And going back to that dating, even for those first couple of weeks, it's kind of like a continuous blind date. Even if you're an employee and you have been hired, all right, feeling this out. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? It seemed like it was a good fit culturally, but is it going to actually be a good fit for both parties involved? Yeah, I could totally see that. Now, Greg, how do you know when someone is ready to either graduate your training and onboarding program or to graduate into like that next level of full-time, quota carrying rep? What does that look like at LingoTek?
Yeah, so in sales, it's easy to do that. You have a really defined measurables, and so when we onboard a sales rep, and I'll speak. This is not just at LingoTek; these are other companies where I've put in onboarding programs. What we'll do is we'll have someone that stays with them for 90 days. That's not their manager. So you have an onboarding manager, or a sales operations manager, someone that is in charge of the onboarding process, that they'll stay with that rep for 90 days, and they have a program that they graduate through. You can think of a fancy name for it or whatever it is. And in the first month, it's a lot of training. It's product training, it's sales training. They might go through a book. I like to read a book with my onboarding groups that helps them kind of focus on a business philosophy that we might be looking to implement at the company. And that'll change from time to time. But
what's an example, Greg, that you've had the team or new hires read?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. I've had them read the book Goals. I believe it's Brian Tracy. I'm forgetting the author on that one, but
we'll take it.
Yeah, there you go. Another one that I like is Extreme Ownership.
Yeah.
And really giving someone the chance to really own their success. Another one that I've done is like I'm trying to think of another one, the Happiness Advantage.
Okay, I like it.
So not always a business book. There's a new one that I just read last week that I'm itching to use with a team called How Stella Saved the Farm.
How Stella Saved the Farm. I'm unfamiliar with that one.
Completely, it's not a business book, but it's about it's kind of a funny book about a farm full of animals that they run the farm. So wow. Stella's a sheep, I think, and the horses run the farm, and they almost go under because they're animals trying to run a farm.
Yeah.
And then an idea from just a lowly sheep on the farm saves the farm.
Perfect. Or
there was another idea throughout the book that could have saved the farm. And the philosophy of the book is basically ideas come from everywhere. It's not always the manager. It's not always the CEO that's going to come in with this awesome idea that's like, guys, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to save the farm.
Yeah.
It can be anyone, and it takes the right leadership to recognize that, but it also takes the right employees to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminded me of a story. So when I was working at a company, it was right after Qualtrics, and they told us a story in onboarding, and it stuck with me quite a bit. They said, so real life story for their company, they were in transition of moving offices and doing everything. And so they had this lobby space that had a little mini fridge in it, and they had clients in. It was an office where clients would come in a lot.
Okay.
And during the construction, they ran this big bright orange extension cord from the office mini fridge all the way down through the hall, around the corner. I mean, we're talking like 150 feet past the conference room, so to go into the conference room, you got to step over it.
Okay.
And it was like this way for 2 months while they're remodeling their office. And then remodel's done, everything, they hire someone. And on the first day, he's walking into the conference room. He's like, hey, why is there this extension cord that just runs everywhere?
Yeah.
And the office manager just looked down and was like, hey, they have power now in the lobby. So unplug the extension cord, plug it right into the wall 2 feet away,
Yeah.
take the extension cord out. And they said, that's been there for 6 months. And it
Yikes.
took someone new to the situation to be able to recognize it and recognize, like, you're having your clients step over this orange, extension cord every single day.
Yeah.
And it just became habit for the employees and everyone there. But it took someone that was willing to say something, that recognized the problem, saw a solution. And that's just the concept of a good employee culture,
Yeah.
where anyone can come up with the right idea and leadership's willing to hear it.
I really like that. Yeah, that's a great story that I think really shows how companies can get very complacent, right? And if you're stepping over that extension cord after, 2 months, well, then all of a sudden that's just what we do. We jump over the extension cord. And that's great to hear. Yeah, I could see how that would be very impactful. Well, since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show, let's talk a little bit, Greg, about what's actually in your sales playbook. So first of all, do you subscribe to, do you have a playbook that a new member of the team or veteran reps can use when they start at LingoTek?
Yeah, so we about 3 years ago, we set out on this adventure to create a sales enablement playbook. And if anyone's ever done this, you can either do it right, or you can really, really mess it up.
Or do it again. You can either do it right, or you can do it over.
You always do it over. It's always refreshed and everything like that. But yeah, it's a big task to create, like, the definitive guide. I think that's like the trendy way to say it. The definitive guide to sales at LingoTek, or something like that. And really, it took a long time for us to produce because we wanted to get it right. But what we found was, as we got into it, there wasn't a right way to sell at LingoTek. There wasn't a definitive guide of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and it's done. There were 5 or 6 different avenues someone could go down. And so rather than get very particular and drive them down these customer journey maps and workflows, everything like that, we decided that we would create that, but we would focus on the principles of how we wanted people to sell. As far as philosophy, not as far as process. And so as we started to teach people the value proposition, the more of a battle card than a process map. This is how we affect our customers in this scenario. This is how we affect our customers in this scenario. And what that took was, we had to get our sales reps on the customer side of the table. We had to have them interview customers. We had to have them really get to understand their customers. And at that point, the sales process was act like your customer. What would they want in this situation? Very much like the onboarding process. Get on the other side of the table, and that really shines a light on how you should act when you're on your side of the table.
Yeah, I really like that. That is really powerful.
So we didn't forego the process map. I wouldn't have a job if we did that. So we created a sales flow and a sales process with stages that were completely dictated on customer action. So you moved someone down the sales pipeline based on them giving you a defined list of criteria. Or based on them agreeing to a proposal in writing and saying, yes, that's what we want, let's figure it out. So that's when you move stages. There's no way to get around it. You're doing it the way the customer buys, not the way that I'm not saying, okay, to stage 2 you have to have this meeting, and to stage 3 you have to. No, it's different for every customer.
So it's really a pull-through strategy versus a, hey, let me constantly try to push you through. Seems like there's a lot of responsibility on the client part as well to maybe do a little homework or do some research or to do some sort of activity that pulls them through the process versus just a constant, like, are you ready for the next demo? Are you ready to buy? Is the money ready yet?
And that's the thing is, there are compelling events in translation and localization, website launches, new content comes out, everything like that, but you can't rush it. You can't, as a sales rep, I can't tell them to go faster, because that's when in translation, that's when people make mistakes. that's when you get botched translations because you're under a deadline, and the gamut of funny translations that you can find on the internet, those are people trying to rush the process. And so as sales reps, we have to be cognizant of that we're talking with people's brands.
Yeah.
It's not something they can come back from.
Yeah.
You mess it up, and KFC puts a bad translation out. Instead of finger licking good, it says, eat your fingers off in Japanese, and people are like, what? Like,
you don't want to become a meme. Like, you don't want to become a meme
exactly.
in the translation game. That's like the last thing you want, and that's hopefully what you're saving your customers from.
Not just in the translation game. That's like a motto for life. Don't become a meme.
Don't become a meme. I like that. I really, really like that. Now, what's an aspect, whether it's these stages, what's a trigger event, or maybe just an action that you take in your sales playbook, or that members of your team take, that you can share with our audience, that is tactical, that just really works for you guys, whether it's a follow-up or whether it's an activity? What's one of those that someone, if they heard it, they could, potentially incorporate it into their sales playbook?
Yeah. So, you'll see a trend. I'm a big people over process person. Find the right fit for the people, create the process that flows naturally from that. Not to be confused with no process.
Yeah.
We automate a ton in our sales flow to help the sales reps out. So what happens is we do a lot of team selling. When someone gets through the finish line as a customer, they have probably met 10 people from our side.
Wow, that's a lot.
And they probably haven't interacted like on a regular basis, but 10 people have touched that account to get it up and running and ready to be onboarded. So that's a lot for an AE to coordinate.
Yeah.
Times and places, everything. So what we do is we've built in automation based on stages. So I know every single person that needs to be involved in a deal on each stage of the deal based on the product mix. So when a sales rep moves something from stage 1 to stage 2, and I know, hey, I need to now have a language services expert, one of our project managers needs to be involved now. When they move it to that stage, it actually pings that PM based on region, based on demographic, everything like that, and says, hey, you got a new deal in your pipeline.
Yeah.
Connect with the AE. You're on the next step. Then when it moves to the next step and we're doing a technical review, the SE is right there. Pings the SE, adds it to his pipeline in Salesforce and says, hey, brush up on this deal. We've got a demo coming up.
That's great.
Everything like that is automated. Once we get down to where the client has agreed we have the right solution, boom, that solution gets sent to the customer service team because they're about to have to implement it.
Yes.
So they need to get hours, everything. So this is before the deal's done. Let's make sure that the CS team is aware that this is happening so that they can get all the necessary assets ready. And they're ready for that onboarding call. Okay, we're ready. We're halfway through this already because we've been working on it for 2 weeks. Once they've agreed to go into negotiations, okay, awesome. Our T's and C's are sent out to them already. We haven't even gotten to like, hey, we need to sign it. Go put this through your legal system. It's already there. We're going to get down the line so that we don't have to get to the end of the deal and say, okay, now it's 2 months for procurement and 2 months for legal and things like that. So creating, the steps, rather than having a sales rep have to chase down T's and C's from the CFO or your legal team, send it over manually. Let's automate some of that stuff that just happens every single time and let people know when they need to engage, so that the AE doesn't have to play ringmaster as well as sales rep, as well as legal consultant and everything like that. So that's where the tactical thing would be: automate the things that recur on every deal, and your sales reps will love you.
Yeah, that they will. And there's less room for error with that. Now, that kind of brings me to my next question. So what if you're a sales leader, or give some advice, if I'm a sales leader that's watching this or listening to this, and I need to have a really big last quarter here. We're recording this podcast on one of the last days of September 2020. And we're coming into the fourth quarter here of 2020. What's one thing, and what's one piece of advice, Greg, you would give to a sales leader who needs to have a really strong quarter? What's a tidbit or tactic that they could start incorporating that would hopefully lead to some results for them?
Very good. I'll two things. One, just real quickly, is if you're trying to do it for this quarter, it's too late. Sorry. And trust your sales reps that it's too, I mean, you can close deals that are there, but changing strategy and everything on the last day of the quarter, I see that a lot where sales manager turns into a completely different animal the last week of the quarter, and he's pushy and he's driving and, hey, you know, the meme, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? That doesn't work for a sales rep. It tells them you don't trust them. And so what I would say is, first off, create a steady pipeline review cadence. Make sure that you're in the pipeline and aware of it so that you don't have to say, what do you got?
Yeah.
Your sales leader should know what you have, and it should be more, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? Rather than what do you got? What do you got? What do you got?
Yeah, I really like that, right? You're going as an advisor almost to your sales reps, and that's really what the management role should be. It should be less trying to push them just like your sales process, and more help them pull through. Where can I coach? Where can I develop?
So
awesome.
a good litmus test for a sales manager, and this is something I learned early on at Qualtrics, was if you were to have to ask your sales reps to give up some of their commission for you to be involved in the deal, would they do it? We're not talking cut it in half, but just anything. Would a sales rep pay for you to be involved in the process?
Wow. Okay.
If the answer is no, then what does that say? You know, and if you can honestly answer that yes, you're in a really good spot, because the sales rep is seeing value from you being involved in the call, in the process, in the training, everything like that. And so just a good litmus test if you really want to introspectively look at it.
Yeah.
And some reps, I mean, some managers have that built in where they get an override on every deal, but that's not the same as taking away from a sales rep's commission.
Yeah, you know, that's a really great question. I really, really like that. And probably it's got to be difficult if you're a sales manager. You can't ask that of your team. I think this is a rhetorical question you got to be asking. But yeah, oh, wow, that's really, really good. I really like that. Well, Greg, I think this is a good part. Let's close with our final 5. So, Greg, these are 5 quick fire questions. I ask the questions, you answer them. You ready?
All right, let me get.
All right, there we go. He's strapping in, folks. Yeah. All right. So, favorite sales-related movie?
Oh, that's a good one. I would have to go with Boiler Room.
Boiler Room, a classic, underrated but very, very good. All right, favorite sales book?
Ooh, that's a good one. And as we talked about, sales books are a wide gamut for me. Yeah. But I would definitely go with Goals. Learning to set goals.
And that is by Brian Tracy. I just looked it up as well.
Yep.
Now,
It was by Brian Tracy.
You were right. Yeah, Brian would be proud of you. Greg, what's something that you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into the career of sales?
Oh my gosh. Understanding the customer is the most important thing. You can't push your own agenda as a sales rep.
I like that. Don't push your own agenda. All right. What's one of your favorite purchases of 2020 under $100? Doesn't have to be business related either.
Under $100. Man, that's hard to do these days. Under $100. This isn't as quick fire as you thought.
No, that's okay.
Gosh, I haven't bought much in 2020. Let's go with.
Has there been a good meal? You had a good burrito.
There you go. I'm thinking of like tech gadgets and stuff like that. Yeah. There is a new barbecue joint down the street that has changed my life in the last year. R&R Barbecue.
Shout out to the powerful R&R Barbecue.
Right. It's easy to just go and grab. It's like a block away.
Perfect.
There you go. We'll give you that one.
Perfect. There we go. All right. So barbecue in Utah. And your favorite social media follow?
Oh, favorite social media follow. There's a couple good ones. For articles, Harvard Business Review.
Okay.
By far, I think they have the best content. But if you're looking for like something really good, I actually like following Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
Not even for the content. He's just entertaining.
Yeah. So I would agree with that.
Whether he's right or not, he owns it completely, and you're not going to tell him anything different.
I totally agree with that. Now, Greg, if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you, where's the best spot to do that at?
LinkedIn's probably the best spot.
Okay.
So LinkedIn, Greg Larsen. You'll be able to find me. I'm the only Greg Larsen in the world. No.
And that's spelled, that's Larsen, S-E-N. And I'll make sure we link it. Yeah, S-E-N, right? And then I'll make sure that we link it in the show notes. Well, Greg, thanks so much for coming on the Inside the Sales Playbook show. This was awesome. And we'll make sure that we link to your notes in the episode. Thanks, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. It's great having you.